When an avoidant realizes they found the one, the person who truly understands their psychology, respects their boundaries, and loves them without trying to change them, their entire world shifts in ways that surprise both them and everyone around them. This recognition doesn't happen quickly or easily, but when it occurs, it triggers a profound transformation that reveals capacities for love, commitment, and emotional availability that the avoidant themselves didn't know they possessed. The realization that someone can love them authentically while honoring their need for autonomy creates psychological safety that allows their deepest feelings and most genuine self to emerge. The moment of recognition often comes not during dramatic declarations or intense emotional moments, but during quiet instances of being understood without explanation, accepted without judgment, or supported without condition. The avoidant suddenly realizes that this person doesn't try to fix them, doesn't pressure them for more than they can give, and doesn't take their defensive behaviors personally. They recognize someone who sees through their walls to their authentic self and loves what they find there, including the imperfections and limitations they've spent years hiding from others. This realization is both terrifying and liberating for the avoidant because it challenges every assumption they've made about relationships and their own lovability. They've built their identity around being difficult to love, requiring too much patience, and ultimately disappointing anyone who gets too close. When they encounter someone who genuinely doesn't find them difficult, who doesn't need patience because they understand, and who isn't disappointed by their authentic self, it creates cognitive dissonance that forces them to reconsider their fundamental beliefs about love and relationships. The initial terror and resistance. The avoidant's first response to realizing they found the one is often intense terror that manifests as increased resistance and testing behaviors. They become more withdrawn, more critical, or more emotionally distant as they unconsciously try to prove that this person will eventually give up like everyone else. This testing phase represents their attempt to preserve their existing worldview while simultaneously hoping this person will prove them wrong about the possibility of safe, lasting love. The terror stems from recognizing how much this person has come to matter to them, which directly threatens their defensive identity built around not needing anyone. They realize that losing this person would cause genuine devastation rather than the manageable disappointment they've experienced with previous partners. This recognition of authentic attachment feels dangerous because it makes them vulnerable in ways they've spent years avoiding. During this phase, the avoidant may sabotage the relationship through various means, picking fights over minor issues, withdrawing for extended periods, or creating drama where none exists. These behaviors aren't conscious manipulation, but unconscious attempts to test whether this person's love is as unconditional and understanding as it appears. They need to know whether their worst behaviors will be met with patience or abandonment, acceptance or judgment. The testing behaviors also serve to create distance that feels psychologically necessary when they're overwhelmed by the intensity of their own feelings. They may feel like they're losing themselves in the relationship or becoming too dependent, triggering their fundamental fears about engulfment and loss of autonomy. The withdrawal becomes their attempt to prove to themselves that they can still survive alone if necessary. Paradoxically, the more someone passes these tests by remaining understanding, patient, and consistent, the more terrified the avoidant often becomes. Each successful test proves that this person might actually be different, which increases both hope and fear. They begin to realize that their defensive strategies might not be necessary with this person, which threatens their entire psychological structure. The gradual surrender. As the avoidant continues testing and consistently receives understanding rather than retaliation, patience rather than demands, and acceptance rather than attempts at change, they begin to gradually surrender their defensive positions. This surrender doesn't happen overnight, but occurs slowly as they accumulate evidence that this person can be trusted with their authentic self, including their fears, limitations, and emotional needs. The surrender process involves the avoidant allowing themselves to want things they've previously denied needing. They begin to admit they enjoy the person's company, look forward to their interactions, and feel disappointed when they're apart. These acknowledgments feel revolutionary because they contradict the avoidant's self-image as someone who doesn't need relationships for happiness or fulfillment. During this phase, the avoidant starts sharing vulnerabilities they've never revealed to anyone else. They might discuss childhood experiences, past relationship trauma, or deep fears that they've kept hidden for years. These revelations aren't strategic or manipulative, but genuine expressions of trust that feel both terrifying and liberating. They're testing whether their darkest truths will be met with judgment or acceptance. The avoidant also begins to recognize and appreciate the unique qualities that make this person different from everyone else they've encountered. They start to understand that their partner's responses aren't just patience or accommodation, but genuine understanding of their psychological needs. This recognition makes them feel seen and understood in ways they've never experienced before. As surrender continues, the avoidant becomes increasingly willing to prioritize the relationship and their partner's needs alongside their own. They start making compromises that don't feel like sacrifices because they genuinely want to contribute to their partner's happiness. This willingness to give represents a fundamental shift from their typical self-protective stance to genuine care and investment in another person's well-being. The transformation of emotional availability. Once the avoidant recognizes they've found the one and begins surrendering their defensive strategies, their emotional availability undergoes a dramatic transformation that often surprises everyone who knows them. They become more expressive, more physically affectionate, and more willing to discuss feelings and relationship dynamics than they've ever been before. This change isn't forced or performed, but emerges naturally as their psychological safety increases. The transformation manifests in their willingness to initiate emotional conversations rather than just responding defensively when their partner brings up relationship issues. They start asking questions about their partner's feelings, checking in about emotional needs, and proactively addressing potential problems before they escalate. This proactive emotional engagement represents a complete reversal of their typical avoidance patterns. Their physical affection also increases significantly as they become more comfortable expressing love through touch, cuddling, and sexual intimacy. The avoidant, who previously seemed allergic to physical closeness, suddenly becomes someone who initiates affection and seeks physical connection as a way of expressing feelings they struggle to verbalize. This physical transformation often shocks people who've known them in previous relationships. The avoidance communication style evolves from defensive and minimal to open and expressive. They begin sharing their thoughts, feelings, and experiences without being prompted or pressured. They start using words like love, need, and want that were previously absent from their emotional vocabulary. This linguistic shift reflects their growing comfort with vulnerability and emotional expression. Most significantly, they develop the ability to tolerate and work through conflict rather than withdrawing at the first sign of disagreement. They learn to stay present during difficult conversations, express their perspective without becoming defensive, and work collaboratively toward resolution. This conflict resilience represents perhaps the most dramatic change in their relational capacity. The commitment revelation. When an avoidant realizes they've found the one, their relationship to commitment undergoes a complete revolution. The person who previously panicked at the mention of future plans suddenly finds themselves naturally thinking in terms of we and us. They begin making long-term plans that include their partner without the usual anxiety about loss of freedom or autonomy. This shift happens because commitment stops feeling like entrapment and starts feeling like choice. The avoidant begins to understand that true commitment enhances rather than restricts their life. They realize that having a secure, understanding partner actually increases their capacity for independence because they have a solid foundation to return to after pursuing individual interests. This recognition transforms commitment from a threat to a source of strength and stability. Their approach to decision-making evolves to naturally include their partner's input and preferences. They start considering how their choices affect their partner, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care and desire to build a shared life. This collaborative approach to life decisions represents a fundamental shift from their previously individualistic perspective. The avoidant also develops genuine excitement about future possibilities with their partner rather than anxiety about potential loss of freedom. They begin looking forward to shared experiences, joint goals, and building something meaningful together. This future orientation replaces their previous focus on maintaining escape routes and emotional distance. Most remarkably, they become protective of the relationship and willing to work through challenges rather than using difficulties as reasons to leave. They develop investment in the relationship's success that motivates them to address problems rather than avoid them. This problem-solving orientation represents a complete transformation from their previous conflict avoidance patterns. The integration of independence and interdependence. One of the most beautiful aspects of an avoidance transformation when they find the one is their discovery that independence and interdependence can coexist harmoniously. They learn that loving someone deeply doesn't require losing themselves, that being vulnerable doesn't mean becoming weak, and that needing someone doesn't eliminate their autonomy. This integration resolves the fundamental conflict that has driven their avoidant patterns throughout their life. The avoidant maintains their individual interests, friendships, and goals while simultaneously building a shared life with their partner. They discover that their partner supports and encourages their independence rather than threatening it, which makes interdependence feel safe and desirable. This balance allows them to be fully themselves within the relationship rather than feeling like they need to choose between authenticity and connection. They develop the ability to miss their partner during separation while still enjoying their alone time. This emotional complexity, feeling both independent and connected simultaneously, represents sophisticated emotional development that many avoidants never achieve. They learn that absence can enhance appreciation rather than providing relief from relationship pressure. The avoidant also learns to ask for support when needed while maintaining their problem-solving capabilities. They discover that interdependence doesn't mean helplessness, but rather having additional resources and perspectives available when facing life's challenges. This reframe allows them to accept help without feeling diminished or dependent. Most importantly, they realize that their partner's love doesn't require them to be perfect or constantly available. They learn that they can have bad days, need space, or struggle with emotions while still being loved and accepted. This unconditional acceptance allows them to relax their hypervigilance and perfectionism within the relationship. The ripple effects on other relationships. When an avoidant finds the one and undergoes this transformation, the effects often ripple out to improve their other relationships as well. They become more emotionally available to family members, more genuine in friendships, and more collaborative in professional relationships. The emotional skills they develop within their primary relationship transfer to other areas of their life. Their increased comfort with vulnerability allows them to deepen existing friendships and form new connections more easily. They become less defensive in social situations and more willing to share their authentic thoughts and feelings. This openness often surprises people who've known them as distant or superficial in their connections. The avoidance relationship with family members often improves dramatically as they become more willing to address past hurts, express current feelings, and participate in family emotional dynamics. They may reconnect with relatives they've kept at a distance or develop closer relationships with immediate family members who previously felt shut out. Professionally, their improved emotional intelligence and communication skills often lead to better workplace relationships and leadership capabilities. They become more collaborative, more willing to give and receive feedback, and more effective at managing interpersonal dynamics. These improvements can lead to career advancement and greater job satisfaction. The long-term stability. Unlike the temporary changes that might occur during the honeymoon phase of relationships, the transformation that happens when an avoidant finds the one tends to be lasting and stable. This permanence occurs because the changes stem from genuine psychological safety rather than external pressure or manipulation. The avoidant has found conditions that allow their authentic self to emerge and thrive. The relationship becomes increasingly stable over time as both partners learn to work with rather than against each other's psychological needs and patterns. The avoidance partner continues to provide the understanding and respect that created the initial transformation, while the avoidant continues to grow in emotional availability and commitment. This positive feedback loop creates ongoing relationship improvement. The avoidant develops genuine confidence in the relationship's durability because it's built on authentic acceptance rather than conditional approval. They trust that their partner won't leave during difficult periods because they've experienced consistency through various challenges and changes. This trust allows them to invest more deeply without fear of devastating loss. The transformation becomes self-reinforcing as the avoidant experiences the benefits of emotional availability and genuine connection. They realize that vulnerability leads to deeper intimacy rather than rejection, that commitment provides security rather than entrapment, and that love can be both passionate and stable. These positive associations motivate continued growth and openness. The unique dynamic created. When an avoidant finds the one, they create a relationship dynamic that's uniquely powerful and satisfying for both partners. The avoidant's natural independence and self-sufficiency complement their partner's secure attachment, creating a relationship that feels both stable and exciting, both committed and free. Neither person loses themselves in the relationship, while both experience deep connection and intimacy. The relationship often becomes a sanctuary where both people can be completely authentic without fear of judgment or rejection. The avoidance partner experiences the rare gift of being truly chosen by someone who doesn't need them but wants them completely. The avoidant experiences the revolutionary feeling of being loved for exactly who they are rather than who they might become. The dynamic also creates space for both partners to continue growing individually while building something meaningful together. The avoidant's respect for independence ensures their partner maintains autonomy, while their own emotional growth creates increasing capacity for intimacy and connection. This balance of freedom and commitment often makes their relationship a model that others admire and aspire to. When an avoidant realizes they've found the one, it represents not just the beginning of a lasting relationship, but the emergence of their fullest potential as a loving, committed partner. The transformation reveals that beneath their defensive strategies lies someone capable of profound love, genuine commitment, and authentic intimacy when provided with the psychological safety to express these capacities. This realization changes not just their relationship, but their entire understanding of what love can be when it's built on acceptance, understanding, and respect for each person's authentic nature.